The only other thing too about Shedeur that I think is annoying me is when people get so upset about his interceptions and like, oh, he threw such a bad pick. The guy's a rookie. Number one, he's gonna have to learn. This is his third game starting. He'll get there. And if you watch these other games, like if any, like, are you watching the other games in the NFL? Jalen Hurts threw I don't even know how many interceptions, and yeah, and fumbles too. And that game was wild. And then it's Brock Purdy. We know had the game before us that was I think three. So like these people that are these quarterbacks that have been in the league are still throwing bad interceptions. Why does he get such a short leash when it comes to the interception? Like it's like everything that he does. And same with the sacks. Like if you look at the sacks of the other quarterbacks, they're all taking sacks. Like strip sacks even some of the other quarterbacks. At least he holds on to the ball. So it's just the hate that he gets is so annoying. But I know it's also partly probably because he's a fifth round pick and he's working out the way that he is. I'm sure people are a little upset. And of course, it's the Browns. So nobody wants us to do good.
That which you're regarding finding out isn't just another sad story about an NFL quarterback. This is the exposure of one of the most planned and methodical character assassination campaigns in the history of modern football. And it's all falling apart in front of our eyes in a big way. Imagine this scene. A reporter writes about yet another bad game by Cleveland Browns quarterback Dillon Gabriel. The cameras are still on, the mic is still on, and what happens next will send shockwaves through the whole company and show the ugly truth that Browns fans have been afraid of for months. Several sources say that Chris Easterling of the Akron Beacon-Journal is the reporter. He turns to his coworkers in the press box. He believes that no one is watching anymore. He believes that the professional mask can finally come off. Then he says it in a mocking and sarcastic way, with every word dripping with sarcasm and mockery. I am taller than him. He says it over and over again, laughing with his friends and making fun of the starting quarterback on his own team for being short, just like the bullies did when they were teenagers on the playground. This wasn't news. This wasn't harsh but fair criticism of Gabriel's league-worst stats. This wasn't a real analysis of why he couldn't throw the ball downfield. This was childish, petty, and personal mocking that was caught on camera for millions to see. This was the mask coming off completely to show what these media people really think when they think no one is listening. But this moment is much bigger than just one unprofessional reporter getting caught saying something they shouldn't have. This leaked video is the first sign that a carefully built dam is starting to break. A dam that has been holding back months of lies, truth, and problems with the way the organization works. People are making fun of Dillon Gabriel in the media that was supposed to protect him. But there's another quarterback on the bench who is so low on the depth chart that he doesn't even get garbage time reps or blowout losses. Shadur Sanders is his name, and the story of how he got there and why he's staying there will blow your mind. The beautiful irony of this whole thing is that the same people who spent months building up Dillon Gabriel as the answer are now the same people who are frantically trying to distance themselves from their own previous analysis. The story is falling apart. The agenda is being revealed, and Browns fans are going crazy because they've known the truth all along. Let me take you back to the start of this mess so you can see how we got to this point. The Cleveland Browns used a lot of their draft picks to pick Dillon Gabriel, a quarterback they quickly nicknamed the Supercompute because they thought he had a very high level of mental processing ability. The message from the organization was clear and consistent from the start. Gabriel was the one. He was ahead of his time. He would come in and run the offense well while the defense brought the team back to life. At the same time, Shedeur Sanders, the very talented son of NFL great Deion Sanders, fell to the 5th round. The Browns picked him up, and right away, a very different story started to form around him. People were saying that Gabriel was polished and ready for the pros, but Shadur was being called a project. Gabriel got all the first-team reps during OTAs and training camp, but Shadur had to work with the scout team. While Gabriel was being named the clear starter before the preseason games even started, Shadur was getting a lot of bad press about his character and readiness. The media coverage perfectly reflected this position of the organization. Too well. Some people would say that picking Gabriel was the smart, safe, and Cleveland way to go. Shadur was good, but he needed to sit down and learn. He had to show that he was serious about football. He had to prove that he could handle the job of being an NFL quarterback. The Browns have only 2 wins and 6 losses right now, which is not good. Before Halloween even comes, the season is pretty much over. And their supercomputer quarterback, who is supposed to be able to process information faster than anyone else, is posting stats that are not only bad, but also historically bad. Dillon Gabriel is currently throwing the ball 5.1 yards on average. Take a moment to really think about that number, because it shows how bad the offense is at what it does. That number puts them 38th in the NFL. There are only 32 starting quarterbacks in the league, so Gabriel is doing worse than a lot of backup quarterbacks who only play when the starter gets hurt. He's worse than veterans who are just hanging on at the end of their careers. He's worse than guys who have been cut by other teams and then picked up by another team. They called this guy the supercompute. They gave this guy every chance to succeed. This is the guy they protected by giving him good press while systematically tearing down the other rookie quarterback on their team. The performance hasn't just been bad or disappointing. As Cleveland sports radio host Darrell Rudder would say, it's been unwatchable. Browns fans have had to watch an offense that looks like it doesn't work at all game after game. Gabriel checks down when it's 3rd and long and you need to attack downfield. He takes too many sacks, including more than one safety. He throws passes that are like wounded ducks that float through the air without speed or accuracy. He plays scared football, which makes you question whether he really belongs on an NFL field. And this is where this story goes from bad to completely crazy. If Gabriel's performance has been this bad for so long, and his own stats show that he's not the answer, why is he still the clear starter? Why is Shedeur Sanders, who looked a lot better in preseason games, so far down on the bench that he's not even getting practice reps with the first-team offense? Recently, head coach Kevin Stefanski said in public that Shadur isn't getting first-team practice time. Think about what that admission means. They aren't even getting their backup quarterback ready to possibly play. They're so sure about the Dillon Gabriel experiment that they're willing to give up the whole season instead of giving the better player a real chance to show what he can do. The real story begins with the answer to why this is happening. This is going to the story that the hot mic moment that got out by accident told the world. People in the Cleveland media and Browns front office have been working together for months to attack Shedeur Sanders' character and reputation in a planned and systematic way. All of this was done to make it okay to keep their chosen quarterback as the starter, no matter how well he played. You want proof that this is a planned character assassination? Let me show you the evidence, one piece at a time. It all started with the speeding ticket incident that showed you everything you need to know about the agenda. Remember that Shadur hadn't played a single meaningful snap in the offseason yet? He hadn't done anything on an NFL field that would have made him a target for intense scrutiny when he was pulled over for speeding. He was driving way over the limit. That fact is undeniable. He got 2 different tickets, one for going 91 miles per hour in a 65 miles per hour zone, and the other for going 101 miles per hour in a 60 miles per hour zone. Those are very bad things to do in traffic that should get you in trouble and be criticized. But what happened next in the news was very telling about what was going on. The Cleveland media machine blew up like an atomic bomb had gone off. This story was all over the place at once. For several days in a row, every sports talk radio show led with it. Every Browns blog and website wrote long articles about what this meant. Every podcast spent a lot of time talking about what this meant for Shedeur's character and future with the organization. The story that came out was quick, well-planned, and completely brutal in its character assassination. The questions being asked had nothing to do with making better choices while driving or keeping the roads safe. The questions were meant to attack Shedeur's basic character and ability to be an NFL quarterback. Does this guy really care about football? Is Dion's kid just another spoiled brat who thinks he doesn't have to follow the rules? Do you want this kind of person to run your business? When the game is on the line, can you trust someone this careless to make good choices on the field? These stories were being pushed hard on many different media platforms at the same time. It was a full-on attack on his character, clearly meant to make fans doubt him before he even had a chance to prove himself on the field. It was a planned effort to make him look immature, careless, entitled, and not like someone from Cleveland, whatever that vague phrase means. Now let's move ahead a few weeks in that same offseason. Who else gets stopped for speeding? Oh, just the face of the whole franchise. Myles Garrett is the highest paid player on the team and the best defensive player of his generation. And how fast was Garrett going when the police stopped him? Was it a low 65 in a 55 zone? Just a little over the limit? No way. The man was going 100 miles per hour in a 60 miles per hour zone. When you figure out the percentage over the limit, it's just as fast, if not faster, than Shedeur Sanders' tickets. The news coverage must have been the same, right? Myles Garrett must have gone through the same intense scrutiny, character assassination, and multi-day analysis that asked if he was mature enough and smart enough to be a leader on this team. That's right, not even close. Garrett's speeding ticket got very little attention. It was a footnote that was gone from the news cycle within 24 hours. Where were the many videos from Cleveland news people questioning his character? Where were the days and days of sports talk radio talking about whether this shows deeper problems with his leadership and judgment? Where were the headlines on every Browns website that asked, "Is he really a leader?" They weren't real. The coverage was not very good, was dismissive, and actively worked to protect Garrett's reputation. The story about his ticket was very different in both tone and content. That's just Myles being himself. He needs to be more careful out there. He is a veteran. He should know better than this. He learned a lot from it. It was seen as a minor footnote, a brief lapse in judgment by an otherwise great player and person. It was not at all used as proof that he isn't mature enough to be the face of the franchise or as an attack on his whole character. It was clear that there was a double standard. If you were paying any attention at all, it was clear and impossible to deny. Shedeur Sanders' speeding ticket was a big deal that made people question his character and whether or not he was fit to be an NFL quarterback. Myles Garrett's speeding ticket was treated like a minor mistake that we should all forget about right away and never talk about again. You can't honestly tell me that this isn't a clear, disgusting double standard that shows the media's agenda in a very clear way. Before Shedeur ever took a snap, they wanted to damage his reputation. They wanted to make stories about characters that would explain why they were keeping him on the bench while also protecting their established stars and their chosen quarterback prospect. And you want to know what really makes me mad? Do you know what Shedeur was really doing with his time while the Cleveland media was working hard to ruin his name? He was doing something that the old guard media establishment hates and can't control. He was going straight to the people, skipping over the traditional media gatekeepers. People were trying to make him look like a spoiled celebrity kid who didn't get or care about Cleveland. But Shedeur Sanders was showing up at local high schools without warning all over the community. He was surprising youth football teams by showing up. He was getting to know the kids by talking to them about their lives and dreams. His presence and words inspired them. He was really and truly telling them that he would help bring a Super Bowl championship to Cleveland. There were no media handlers or PR teams setting up carefully staged photo ops for him. He was a man of the people in the most real way possible, being real, accessible, and focused on the community. This was real community involvement, the kind that really matters and changes people's lives. Do you think the media establishment understands that kind of real connection that goes around their platforms and makes them useless? Of course they don't, because he's not their guy. They found him and promoted him. They can't control him through their platforms. He didn't grow up in their system. He is the son of Deion Sanders and has a huge platform and following that is bigger than most local news outlets. They can't own him. They can't control him. They can't control the story about him like they can with other players who need media coverage to build their brands and public profiles. Take a moment to think about the difference. I don't mean to disrespect other talented young quarterbacks, but you don't see most rookie quarterbacks showing up in poor neighborhoods without warning to spend time with kids. You don't see them spending their free time visiting schools and inspiring young people without cameras and PR teams filming every second for social media. Shedeur was really getting involved in the community in a way that really changes lives. Instead of being praised as the kind of character and leadership you want in a franchise quarterback, the local media either completely ignored it or twisted it to show that he wasn't focused on football and wasn't taking his job seriously enough. The media had to find ways to make him look bad at every turn, and they were willing to turn even clearly good things into bad things to keep their story straight. Doing good things in the community took time away from football. Self-assurance turned into arrogance. Self-advocacy turned into entitlement. Everything he did was seen in the worst possible light. The Tony Grossi story is the last piece of the puzzle that shows beyond a shadow of a doubt that this media agenda is very personal and planned. And I can tell you that the truth about what really happened is even better and more revealing than the rumors that have been going around Brown's circles. The rumor that spread was that famous Cleveland media figure Tony Grossi was praising Shedeur before the draft. But then, when he got to Cleveland, he suddenly became very negative. The truth about how they really interacted is much more interesting and tells us a lot more about how things work. After a preseason game in which Shadur played very well and looked like a real NFL quarterback prospect who should have been seriously considered for the starting job, he was leaving the podium after talking to the media. He saw Tony Grossi standing there with the other reporters, and what happened next is the stuff of legend. If this had happened to any other rookie, they would have kept their head down and kept walking. If you know how the Cleveland media works and want to keep your job, you don't confront Tony Grossi. In that press room, he's a king. A man who has been writing about the Browns for years. He knows a lot of people in the organization at all levels. Through his coverage, commentary, and the stories he chooses to push or bury, he can definitely make or break a young player's reputation in that market. But Shedeur Sanders is not like any other rookie, and he wasn't going to follow the unwritten rules that keep players under the control of the media. He went right up to Tony Grossi in front of everyone, and his brother was filming the whole thing on his phone, which makes this moment even more famous because we have video proof of what happened. Shadur looked Grossi right in the eye with that natural prime-time charm and unshakable confidence that can't be learned or faked. He said right away, "Tony, I hope you have something good to say about me." "I don't know why you're always saying bad things about me." Take a moment to really think about that moment and how important it is. A fifth-round rookie quarterback who had almost no power or protection from the organization called out the most powerful and important media figure in Cleveland sports right to his face in front of other media members who were there to see it happen for being unfairly negative in his coverage. He didn't play the political game that new people are supposed to play. He didn't kiss the ring that new players are supposed to kiss. He should have stayed quiet, kept his head down, and hoped things would change once he proved himself on the field. Instead, he went straight to the king and said, "I see exactly what you're doing, and I'm not going to pretend I don't see it or that it's okay." They both kind of laughed it off at the time, keeping up some level of professional courtesy for the cameras, but the message was very clear. They weren't going to let Shedeur Sanders control them. He wasn't going to let the traditional media power structures control him. He wasn't going to quietly put up with unfair treatment. He was going to call it out in public and let people know that he was paying attention. And from that moment on, in my opinion, and the opinion of many people who have been following this story closely, the plan was set in stone. They didn't like how sure this kid was of himself. He knew too much about how the media plays games and tricks people. He had too much power on his own because of his huge platform and his father's huge influence in the football world. He couldn't be scared or controlled like most young players can. They had to figure out how to keep him buried on the bench for good, where no one could see or think about him. They had to support someone they could control, someone who would be thankful for the chance and wouldn't question their authority or speak out against their unfair coverage. Dillon Gabriel was the one they wanted, their guy, their supercomputer. He would do everything the Cleveland way without making waves or threatening the established media power structures. And so the campaign really got going. Every practice report talked about how well Gabriel ran the offense. Every analysis before the season focused on how quickly he made decisions and how well he stayed in the pocket. Every interview with coaches and front office staff backed up the story that Gabriel was clearly the starter and that the competition wasn't really close. On the other hand, whenever Shedeur's name came up, it was always with concerns and conditions. He has talent, but he needs to grow. He has strong arms, but he needs to learn how to play offense. He is sure of himself, but maybe too sure. He comes from a good family, but is he really going to work hard? The coverage was so one-sided and so clearly biased that Browns fans who were actually watching preseason games with their own eyes started to doubt what they were seeing. Shadur would make amazing throws during games, showing off touch, accuracy, and arm talent that Gabriel just didn't have. He could make something out of nothing and keep plays going with his speed, before them when the protection failed. He would stay calm in the pocket and be able to go through his progressions and find his check down when he needed to. But none of that mattered because the story had already been told. Gabriel was the guy, and there was nothing Shadur could do to change that. From the start, the fix was in, and the organization was determined to see it through no matter what the actual performance on the field showed. Now, let's skip ahead to now, and everything is falling apart in a big way. The carefully crafted story can't stand up to the harsh truth of how NFL games really go. Dillon Gabriel is having a hard time. His numbers are historically bad, which makes him one of the worst starting quarterbacks in the league. The offense isn't just bad, it's so bad that you can't even watch it. It can't even throw the ball downfield. And the reporters who spent months building up Gabriel and tearing down Shadur are now in full panic mode, trying to distance themselves from what they said and wrote in the past. The time when a reporter made fun of Gabriel's height on a hot mic wasn't the only time one person acted unprofessionally. It was a look into what these journalists really think now that the mask has come off. Then, there was Darrell Rutter's totally nuclear radio segment that blew the lid off of everything. Rutter didn't just say bad things about Gabriel's recent performances, or say he was unhappy with how the season has gone so far. He completely destroyed the whole process of making decisions in the organization that led to this disaster. "I can't believe Andrew Berry did this," Rutter said, his voice full of the same frustration and disbelief that every Browns fan has felt watching this offense stumble through game after game that they kept shoving this guy down our throats. "I told you during training camp that this guy wasn't it. This is not worth watching. Not worth watching." That one word means the whole Dillon Gabriel story is over. Not going through the normal growing pains of a rookie, not showing flashes, but needing more time to get better. Can't watch it. A member of the Cleveland media who is there every day and watches every practice and has access that fans don't have is telling you in the clearest possible terms that the Cleveland Browns starting quarterback is not an NFL caliber player right now. Rutter went even further and said without a doubt that Gabriel is not an NFL quarterback based on what we see right now. This isn't just a random caller on a sports talk show letting off steam after a tough loss. This is a credible, well-connected media person who covers this team professionally and is finally admitting what everyone with working eyes has known for weeks.